Hello, how many in your party?
She's already here, table 5. Hello and welcome to the channel. Incredibly excited to be speaking to you today about the Onsra Challenger. Spoiler alert, I really like this board, but I'm sure many of you guys want to know the details so that you can make a decision as to whether or not this is the right board for you. But before we get started, I have an ask. If at any point during this video you like what you see or you hear, would you please consider liking and subscribing to the channel? Without further ado, let's get into it. The deck. This board is composed of 6 layers of maple and 2 layers of glass fiber. And that's going to actually be somewhat on the stiffer side, and that's probably because the enclosure actually runs the entire length of the deck. Now, when you look at this board, there are some very unique characteristics associated with this board. The concave is incredibly aggressive to help you lock your feet in, and then this board also has a kicktail on it. And it's not just a kicktail that's there for aesthetic purposes and just to make the board look cool. It's actually very usable. Hey. Oh, why you didn't finish it up? Why you didn't finish it? Okay.
That's what I'm passing.
Okay.
I'm passing it forward. I'm passing it, yeah. Passing the baton. Yeah, it's heavy. That battery is fire. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, you got it good. Hey! Now, when I posted this board on my Instagram, many questioned whether or not the concave was too aggressive and that whether or not it would cause a lot of foot fatigue. And I can honestly say that it's not really the case at all. I rode this board one day from about 10 in the morning to almost 1 in the morning with the guys, just literally riding around the whole city of Atlanta. And I can honestly say that my feet were no more fatigued than I would normally be on any other regular longboard. So that's not a really big deal at all. But I will say that that concave really helps you carve around and just really lock your feet in place, and it's just a really nice riding experience. Now, when you look at that kicktail, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is very usable. And when I first saw a lot of the rendering and images on social media and such, I thought it was there just to make the board look old schoolish and cool, but it's actually very usable. I and a lot of other guys in the crew are in love with this kicktail. They were just doing all kind of maneuvers on it. We just had a really good time on this board. And I think that that kicktail, in addition to just being fun, is going to have a really practical usage as well. Oftentimes when you have a long board and you're trying to turn in tight spaces, you just can't do it. You have to either pick the board up and turn it or put your foot up under the board to turn it. But actually with this particular kicktail, you can actually make small, tight maneuvers by just actually utilizing the kicktail. So I think that that is very usable, and I think that can help people who want to use this board as a commuting option, because you can actually navigate relatively well when you're trying to go off of curves or make tight turns and such. Now, when you look underneath the board, you're going to notice that there's a matte black finish, which looks very nice to me. And you also going to notice that there's some wheel well cutouts there, so that to help users prevent from actually having wheel bite when riding this board, and I really appreciate that. And when we talk about the top of the deck as far as the grip tape and such, this board is utilizing a foam grip tape, and they did a very nice job with the design of it. I also love the logo that's ingrained in the center of the deck. Overall, I think this deck looks amazing, and to be honest about it, it is a head turner, and I really have no major complaints when you talk about this deck. Now that's going to take us into the trucks, and this board is actually utilizing double kingpin trucks, and this board is car-velicious. Yes, I said it, car-velicious. That's my word, don't y'all steal my word. And this board allows you to really just carve around and have a really good time. The trucks are super carved, 13-inch, 320 millimeters width, and they're coming with the 100A 95% high rebound bushings. Now, when this board comes, I'm just going to be honest and put it out there. Experienced riders know that you often have to adjust your bushings so that you can fit your riding style and then even your weight. But when this board came, I really had to crank down the bushings in the truck so that the board was actually rideable for me as a heavier rider. But when I did that, my riding experience literally went through the roof, and I was able to really enjoy this board and feel very stable, even though it is a double kingpin truck. Now, people that are new to e-skate, double kingpin trucks are great for carving, and it allows you to make sharper turns than what you traditionally see on reverse kingpin trucks, which is very solid to me, and I just really enjoy the carving experience when riding this board. One of the other things that really fascinated me is that I did not feel unstable on this board when riding at high speeds. And we're going to talk about the top speed a little bit later, but this board has a relatively high top speed, and when I thought about that with a double kingpin truck, I didn't know if I really wanted to even try to mess with that. But I would say that after tightening up the trucks and such, I felt very stable. The board carves very well, and I think that people that love to carve and pump around, they're really going to enjoy this truck setup that is actually on this board. The wheels. This board is actually shipping with Cloud Wheels 105s. And if you watch this channel, you guys know I am a fan of the Cloud Wheels. I recently did a video on the Cloud Wheel donuts. I also have a video on the channel about the Cloud Wheels. And some of the things I like about the Cloud Wheels is that they help increase your safety margin. I talked about this a really long time ago in some of my videos. It's one of the reasons why I love for my son to ride around with these type of wheels, because these wheels allow you to ride over a lot of different obstacles in the road, sticks, small stones, even uneven terrain. And what that does is not only does it increase your ride comfort, but it also helps with safety, because little small rocks don't throw you off of your board, or little sticks or things like that. So when you talk about these wheels, not only are you getting some increased safety with the Cloud Wheels, but the other thing is, because this deck is a little bit on the stiffer side, those Cloud Wheels are going to help eat up those cracks and those vibrations, and it will also allow you to do a little light off-roading. Can you ride over boulders and stuff? No. But can you jump on some grass for a second? Yes. Can you go on a small dirt patch for a second to go around some pedestrians and such? Yes, you can do those kind of things with this particular board. The other thing I like about these Cloud Wheels is that it actually raises the board a little bit, so you're not so concerned about the actual motors hitting the ground. That's one of the concerns that some people have when you talk about direct drive motors, is that they are traditionally a little bit closer to the ground than what you would see from belt drive motors. So you have to be a little bit more careful when going over obstacles and things like that, especially if you're riding around with really small wheels. But to be honest about it, that's not really that much of a challenge here with this particular board, because you're getting those large Cloud Wheels on the board. So they're serving a variety of different purposes: increasing your safety margin, increasing the ride comfort, and also raising the board a little bit so you don't have to worry about your motors actually hitting the ground when you're riding around town. Now, that's going to take us to the battery. They're utilizing Samsung lithium-ion 12S 2P configuration, 21700 cells, and a max capacity of 500 watts and a nominal capacity of 432 watts. And I'm going to focus on the 432 watts because that is the number that people traditionally use when they rate the battery specs on a particular board. And I think that this is a very solid situation. And Onsra is advertising that individuals are supposed to be able to get a lot of range on this board. And I did not get a chance to do a range test on this board because, to be honest about it, when I got this board, I just wanted to see what the performance was all about and what it's like to ride this board hard. I probably would do a range test if you guys are interested in that. But what I'm seeing so far as riding this board around, I really am enjoying what I'm seeing about the range and what I feel like is the lack of battery sag that this board actually has. So overall, I don't have any major complaints with this battery setup. And of course, when you look at the battery setup and the enclosure, this deck is actually utilizing a unibody design where the battery and the ESC are actually composed together. And when I tell you, it looks very nice to me and very well put together. And I talked about this in the unboxing. When you look at this board, to me, it looks like a lot of attention and detail went into a lot of things about this board. And I think that people that are looking at this are really going to enjoy it. And that's going to take us into the ESC. And this board is utilizing the Hobby Wing ESC. if you watch this channel, you know I talk about the Hobby Wing ESC a lot. Many people are a fan of it because it's intuitive and it's responsive, and you don't feel like you're going to get jerked around when you're braking or accelerating. It's just a very predictable ESC, and many people really like this particular ESC. Now, when you talk about this particular ESC and then this remote, this board has 3 speed modes, and that is very solid as well. Now, since we're talking about the remote, when you look at this remote, it's coming with that traditional Hobby Wing remote that has the screen indicator on there, and I am a really big fan of this remote because the scroll wheel feels amazing, and then the remote is also very ergonomic and it feels great in your hand. Now, one of the things that I want to mention again here that I also talked about in my unboxing is that Onsra actually has their logo ingrained on the actual remote so that you can actually tell this remote apart. To some that only have one board, this may not be a big deal. My board collection is actually growing, and it's growing pretty fast actually, and I have about 5 of those type of remotes. And I can't tell you how often I've mixed up remotes because they all look the same because there's no branding or marketing on them. I love that Onsra actually put some branding and marketing on the remote so that I know that this remote actually fits that particular board. What's funny is I was talking to Daniel a long time ago, and I was just teasing him because he had actually organized all of his remotes and battery chargers and stuff like that by putting labels on them. And I was laughing at him, but I see why people need to do that, because when you have so many items at the house, it's hard to keep track of these things. So I love that Onsra actually did that and put those details on there so that you can quickly identify your remote that goes with this board, and you don't have to do any guesswork. Of course, you can go between kilometers and miles per hour on this particular board, and then the remote also gives you a variety of different information: board battery, remote battery, the speed mode, so on and so forth. So overall, I feel like it is a very solid situation. No major complaints whatsoever. We talk about the ESC, the battery, or the remote. The motors. This board is actually utilizing direct drive. And if you saw my unboxing, you guys know that I was incredibly excited to get this board because I've never had a direct drive board before. I've had plenty of belt drive boards, plenty of hub motor boards, but it's been amazing to get a board like this because I wanted to see what the benefits were and what it felt like when you talk about range, when you talk about torque, when you talk about acceleration and things like that. Onsra is advertising that it has 6,000 watts max power and that the motors have superior heat dissipation. It also comes with a 12S 50.4 volt max kV rating of 64 kV. Now, the top speed that Onsra also advertises is very high, upwards of 29 to 30 miles per hour. And to be honest about it, I was wondering, was that something I even wanted to try to attempt, because this is a double kingpin board. And to be honest about it, I've never tried to ride a double kingpin board that fast. Now, I know that there are some people out there that say I do it all the time. More power to you. But me personally, it just wasn't something I thought I wanted to do. But I'm proud of myself, and I'm happy to announce it. Actually, while I was riding this board, I actually hit 30 miles per hour on 2 or 3 different occasions. Now, there was a very slight decline there, but the fact that I was able to hit that with my weight of being around 225 is very solid to me. Honestly, when I was doing a lot of my riding, I would say I was anywhere from about 20 to about 26 miles an hour, and I felt very good at those speeds. Now, when you talk about the torque, this is another thing that really surprised me, because most people know that many belt drive boards, they have a reputation for having a lot of torque, and sometimes hub motor boards, they have a reputation for not having as much torque. But this board has a very good amount of torque. I can honestly say that. Did a lot of hill climbing. We even did the death spiral that we call it here in Atlanta. And this board was climbing it incredibly well. I mean, literally was just eating up almost everything that I threw at it. So overall, these motors are just very impressive to me when you talk about the range, when you talk about the torque, when you talk about the acceleration. All of these things that I think are at a very high level. And you have to remember, I'm 225 pounds. So somebody who's even lighter than me, they're going to feel even more torque and acceleration and such. But even for myself, I was pretty impressed with what I was able to experience while actually riding this board. No major complaints whatsoever. Now, that's going to take us into our nitpick section. And I often like to share things that I think can be improved on boards, or things that I think users should consider when they're trying to decide what board to purchase out there. I want people to spend their money and be happy with it, because I've purchased boards in the past and been unhappy with the performance of it. So I like to try to be honest with people and let them know where they stand with particular boards. And occasionally you get boards where there's not a lot to talk about, to be honest about it. Now, one of the nitpicks that I had, which is actually kind of resolved now, was that since this board actually has a usable kicktail, I reached out to Fabi and I said, hey man, I've actually scratched the back of my deck a little bit, the tail of the board, from doing little kick turns and manuals and things like that. We were just having a good time with this board. And Fabi told me, he said, hell, oh yeah, you have kind of like a pre-production model. And he said that all of the models that consumers will actually get will have some type of material on the back of that kicktail, so it's going to protect your kicktail. I think he said it's going to have a metal or something like that on there. So really, it's not really a nitpick, because that's going to be something that actually gets rectified before the boards actually ship out to consumers. I mentioned a little bit earlier, the trucks, they came a little loose to me, but I mean, you just tighten that up and you kind of address that as well. But that's just something I wanted to mention because new riders may be unaware of that, so I wanted to mention that as well. But to be honest about it, guys, I don't really have any other like negative things to say about this board. I think it's very solid. And I think that's going to take us into our final thoughts. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I really like this board. I feel like Onsra did a lot of things right. A lot of attention to detail that's going on here. The board looks amazing. It looks sexy. Oftentimes when people buy a board, and I'm going to speak on myself, but I know other people feel this way as well. Part of the e-skating experience is the fun of riding the board and carving and the freedom. But I think that there also is a component to it of where you want to look cool while you do it. It's the reason why people buy certain helmets, because you want to look cool. It's the reason why people put lights on their boards, because you want to stand out and you look cool. And to be honest about it, this board is a head turner. Every time I rode this board somewhere, people were asking me about this board. What kind of board is that? Man, that board looks cool. People wanted to stand on it. People wanted to look at it. It is a good looking board. The design of it, almost second to none. The matte black looks amazing. The kicktail looks awesome. It has a old school rugged look to it. The grip tape looks very good. They didn't just slap some grip tape on there, the foam grip tape. It actually has some design in the way that they did it. They engraved their logo on the top of the board. That looks very good. Just overall, this is a very, very solid looking board. And I think that people who invest in this board are going to be incredibly happy with their purchase. Now, one of the things that I like about Fabi is that he's passionate about e-skate and he's passionate about the community. And I think that gets translated with this board. You could tell a lot of attention to detail went into it. It looks amazing. It performs well. The torque is very good. The acceleration is very good. The hill climbing is very nice. It has a usable kicktail. They did a lot of things right that are going to make people who purchase this board be incredibly excited about their purchase and really just enjoy the board. If you want to learn more about this particular board, please take a moment to check out the link in the description. In addition to learning more about the board, I also have a discount code down there that if you want to purchase your board, not only can you save a little money, but it also helps support the channel. As always, remember, PEVs allow you to be everywhere, and I'll see you at the top because the bottom is too crowded. Peace.